Another casualty of coronavirus disease 2019 has been recorded by the Ministry of Health. Conrad Everett, a resident of Belize City, is the second victim to have lost his battle with the highly infectious contagion. The affirmative test result for the 63-year-old came from a batch of 30 samples that were analyzed on Holy Thursday. However, Everett had been swabbed twice before while hospitalized at the Belize Healthcare Partners Limited.
He had an initial diagnosis of community-acquired pneumonia, and he was there till March 30th, which is when we understand he self-discharged himself from the institution, returned on March 31st with respiratory distress. He was intubated on March 31st at Healthcare Partners Limited, and he remained intubated there for 1 week before he was transferred to Karl Huchner.
That was on April 7th. Everett arrived at the KHMH with a tube inserted in his windpipe to provide his lungs with oxygen. He was immediately admitted to the intensive care unit. Of note is that Everett had been placed on a ventilator since admission at BHPL 8 days earlier.
He improved significantly in terms of his respiration process, and when they tried to take up the sedation on April 2nd, they realized that he had, in point of fact, a neurological condition. He had had a stroke while he had been in the induced coma, which can be a complication of being in an induced coma and prostrated in a bed. He got a CAT scan done that confirmed that he did have a stroke, and so that would have made his weaning off a ventilator a little bit much more difficult than any patient who doesn't have a complication.
The previous tests that he had undergone while at Belize Healthcare Partners were inconclusive. Upon his transfer to the Karl Huchner Memorial Hospital, specimen was once again taken from the former BATSUB employee.
He was swabbed at Karl Huchner on Thursday, April 9th. We had a preliminary screening test at around 3 p.m. and so Karl Huchner staff was alerted at that time of what the potential result would have been until we got the confirmatory test at about 9 p.m. last night.
The official announcement from the Ministry of Health came just before 6:30 a.m. on Good Friday. Less than 5.5 hours later, Everett was pronounced dead.
My fellow Belizeans, very early on this Good Friday morning, we recorded our second COVID-19 related death. I offer sincere condolences to the bereaved family. In consequence, you know that this particular case is accompanied by some nightmarish circumstances as to the exposure of many persons to the patient before he died. In the result, the overall picture clearly demonstrates the possibility of widespread transmission of the virus. To try to contain this possibility, we must act now.
While it has been reported that members of the KHMH staff who attended to Everett at the ICU were all wearing personal protective equipment, where and how he contracted the deadly virus is still being determined. Everett reportedly attended a private gathering of as many as 100 guests, including persons who visited from the United States at Plaza Diner on the night of March 14th.
In the case number 10, that's the one that we have identified at least 4 other persons that are positive, and that's what we call an active cluster, because that has produced 5 cases linked to 1 case. So that's why it's called an active cluster, because we're trying to identify all other potential cases that are linked to that one single case.
It is believed that those 5 patients linked to Everett include his wife and daughter, both employees of James Brody and Company Limited on Albert Street. That department store has since been closed for business while a decontamination exercise is carried out. Another of Everett's daughters works at Scotiabank, also on Albert Street. That financial institution was disinfected on Easter Sunday. Meanwhile, Belize Healthcare Partners remains closed until April 15th, notwithstanding the fact that its employees have also tested negative for COVID-19 after attending to Everett. The contact tracing for those infected in his family continues. Reporting for News 5, I am Isani Cayetano.